I muted myself. Huh. Hi. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Outer Rim. I'm Gabe, and I'm here with my friend Ryan. And today we're going to be talking about the series finale of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Welcome, dude. What's up?
Hello there. I'm doing just fine.
Yeah, I'm doing all fine here now. How are you? Um,
Yeah.
so yes, as I said, we're talking about the series finale, and let's just dive right into it. I feel like this is going to be a long discussion, so there's a lot to
Yes.
say. We would have had Drew on, but just some kind of technical issues with his computer, he was not able to join, which is unfortunate for reasons we'll get into pretty soon. So this episode, as always, was directed by Deborah Chow. It was written by Andrew Stanton, Joby Harold, or Joby Harold, Andrew Stanton, and Hossein Amini, with Stuart Beatty getting story by credit. So a lot of people, everyone who ever worked on the show got a credit on this episode, apparently. And this one we see the rebels are still escaping. Obi-Wan leads Vader off to a planet to distract him. They fight there. Obi-Wan wins and leaves, and then at the same time, Reva follows the message back to Tatooine and attacks Lars and Owen Lars and Beru's homestead to try to kill Luke. Eventually, is able to kill him because, well, we'll talk about that. I don't know why, for reasons. She's able to kill him, and Obi-Wan shows up, and she kind of gets a moment of redemption. Then this there's a lot of endings. I noticed, like, I know a bunch of almost like Return of the King level endings, where he goes and visits Leia, then he goes and visits Luke, and then he goes and sees Qui-Gon for 20 seconds. Yeah, that's the episode. I didn't write a synopsis in case you could tell. All right, so Ryan, what'd you think?
I did not like it. To put it gently, I have not really liked this series as a whole, which is a shock to me because I expected to like it. Um, I was, to be fair, I was always a little bit worried about the Grand Inquisitor's design. Um, but
And then that turned out to be the least of your worries.
yes, like it's Uh, but anyway, well, I was also worried too when they started advertising a Obi-Wan Vader rematch of the century thing, which okay, we'll get into why that didn't happen. Um, but yeah, I've been overall pretty negative on this series. I did like aspects of episode five. Um, this episode, there are some moments like I did enjoy the moment, despite myself, with Obi Wan talking to Leia and talking about all the qualities she got from her mother and from her father. Like that's nice stuff. But overall, this show is all over the place. Uh, there did seem to be less egregious, green screen stuff going on in this episode, but it was still here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like I suppose I did like aspects of the duel, but uh, man, this whole thing just wasn't for me. And the drama they played out has already played out. So I just don't understand why they went the way they did that with this series. And Reva in particular, just that whole thing doesn't really make sense. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so if you've been watching the reviews, my general disinterest in this show has been quite apparent. Like I came around like last week. I liked I truly liked episode five. Had quibbles, but I liked it. And so I was like, okay, Andrew stands right in the finale. Maybe he can bring this around. He didn't, in my mind. Um, I think I legit hated this episode, and not for all the same reasons that I disliked the previous episodes. Like I really disliked the previous episodes. I think because of their cheapness. I thought the acting was often weak. The scripting was often very weak. This one, I think the direction's better. the duel itself, I think, works. I think the acting is excellent. Like, there's a moment where Obi-Wan, like, almost broke through my hard-hearted exterior and made me cry because Ewan is so freaking good. It's like a lot of the pieces are working, but for me, they make a series of story choices that I just I found unforgivable. And I wish we could have had Drew here to kind of give the perspective of someone who liked the show, because we're apparently in the minority. Like, a lot of people, even people who were colder on the show than us, seem to have absolutely loved. I mean, who were not colder than us, who were colder than the average on the show, seem to really come around for the finale. So it's a shame that we can't be here to represent that. Maybe someone will pop in the live comments and try and correct us. So
That would be nice, actually.
yeah. So I think I do want to talk, just kind of, we've mentioned this before in passing, but your and I's central problem with the conceit of this show, on several stages. One, the Obi-Wan Leia relationship. Two, Obi-Wan and Vader meeting. Like, the whole rematch of the century happening in the Obi-Wan show between Revenge of the Sith and Obi-Wan Kenobi. I feel that is just off limits. Like, this is what there are a lot of blank areas in Star Wars where you can tell a lot of different things, and then I think there are areas where, because we've seen 2 points in time, there are things you cannot do between them. And based on how Revenge of the Sith ended and how A New Hope includes Vader and Obi-Wan, I just do not see any space for a meeting between the two, much less a battle of this intensity. And so, while I will give Chow credit for, like, I think if Battle of Heroes never happened, and just like the fate of Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship was kind of left up in the air, say how it was with Ahsoka,
Right.
if they had not had a chance to fight it out on a volcano,
And
I feel
vocalize their problems with each other at that point.
I feel like this would have been a decent conclusion.
Sure.
Also, there's the caveat of the Rebels connections. I'll get into that later. That also makes me very angry. But I feel like if that hadn't happened, this would have been a semi-decent conclusion. I think, like, the acting, where the filmmaking kind of stumbled, I think the acting and just the essential emotions of the Master Padawan dynamic coming to this explosion, I think, would have carried it through. But I could never fully invest in it because I can never get it out of my mind that this should not be happening. And I'm gonna let you speak. I could go on for another half hour, so I'm gonna let you. Did you have anything to add to that idea?
Yeah. I think that, like, I don't want any loopholes left here because I think that the way things left off in Revenge of the Sith, with the context of those vague allusions in A New Hope, it's not even that something could not have happened in between that time, so much as if anything happened in that time, it automatically lessens and cheapens those vague allusions.
Mm.
Like, the primary drama of their lives has already played out, and anything else is just lesser round two. And that's what we got. We got the lesser round two. And so what we did is we took the most dramatically relevant portion of their life and traded it out for this, which is, I mean, down to the point of reusing lines is a rehash of the same drama from Revenge of the Sith, which I know people go in for that kind of thing, but I think it's too cute by half for Star Wars. It's just, I don't know. I
And
don't like it. I don't think you can craft anything that would be dramatically more relevant in between there. So it was just ill advised from the get go, and it did about as good as it could for round two as far as the Vader Obi-Wan thing goes.
and to give credit to the people who enjoyed it, I think that their argument is this was necessary because we had to get Obi-Wan Kenobi from a broken, hopeless man to believing again, to rejoining the cause that he left behind, and learning to hope again, reconnecting himself with the Force. And but for me, that argument doesn't work, because if you look at where Obi-Wan Kenobi was at the end of Revenge of the Sith, he was collected. He was maybe, I mean, like, he was obviously kind of bummed by what just happened, but he had a mission. He accepted it. Like,
Yeah.
he knew what he was doing. There was no signs of any deep internal struggle. And obviously, we can surmise that there were many long, dark nights of the soul went alone on Tatooine for 10 years, like, or 20 years. Like, that had to have been rough. But as far as, like, the dramatic need for this show had to be created within this show.
Right.
Created and resolved. And ultimately, once we got to the climax and they're fighting and we see the dramatic resolution that the show has in store for them, I cannot see anything dramatically that was done in this final duel that wasn't just redoing the dramatic resolution of Revenge of the Sith.
And less well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. There's no John Williams and there's no lava, and
Yes.
there's no, and they're not. They're not 30, 25 and 30-year-olds who can just do the most amazing choreography.
Right.
I think just the presence of the suit, I think, does definitely lessens the quality of the choreography. But I do want to. I kind of wrote down, like, what the writers of this show are trying to do is make this about Obi-Wan getting over his guilt for what happened to Anakin, kind of coming to terms with the man his Padawan has now become, realizing that his friend is dead and gone and all that. But I think all of that happens in Revenge of the Sith, and in leading up to Battle of Heroes and the Battle of Heroes and the Resolution, like, all these things that they do, like, the horror at what his friend has become. You see the horror and disbelief as he's watching the security tapes. Like, this cannot be. And then when he's talking with Padme trying to find his location, he's just breaking down. He cannot believe what's happened to his friend. And then he goes to Mustafar and tries to reason with him, is pleading with him. Like, before the fight and during the fight, he tries to reason with him. Then
it gets to the point where he says, well, you are lost. And
yeah, he comes to the revelation that his friend is gone. Like, he cannot reach him anymore. I must kill him. And then after he cuts his legs, like his arm and legs off, and burns him alive, he lets all his grief out. You were the chosen one. You were my brother. I loved you. And in that moment, as Anakin lights on fire and his eyes turn yellow and he's screaming, I hate you, is like the final nail in the coffin. Anakin's not there anymore. This is an animal. This is a monster.
Right.
That's left. And he clocks that, accepts it, and walks away. I just described the fight they gave us in Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I'm a little confused as to what they thought they were giving us that we hadn't seen before.
I don't know either. Even like, so I like the imagery of the split open mask. I like the effect of the, like, blending of the James Earl Jones filtered voice and the Hayden Christensen unfiltered voice.
Was Matt Lanter.
Yeah. I appreciate the imagery there, but what's weird, what strikes me as weird is Obi-Wan's whole Anakin thing. Like, he's under. It's not like a surprise or a revelation to you. Like, and I understand he could be remarking on, oh my goodness, you look truly terrible, but you were there. You did it.
And they already met. They already had the meeting. What's become of you? I am what you made me. So, like, the horror of the revelation that he's still alive and he's a robotic monster, that already happened earlier in the show.
Yeah, it's like, it's just repeat after repeat, and like, I agree with you in that, like, if there had been some kind of unresolved tension between these two, this would have been a solid way to cap it off. The problem is, it's reloading the gun with the same bullet and firing it again. It's like, it's
with
not
less powder.
Yes, it's not it's not going to have the same impact. It's this, and I know for some people it may have, but I just narratively speaking, I think it's clumsy. It's as clumsy as it is stupid.
And this comes to my second point, the part that like I'm disappointed and kind of left cold by repeating Revenge of the Sith. I am legitimately infuriated by the fact that they thought they could just rip off Rebels and pass it off as their own, and just and like not even like, oh, we recreated this dynamic with two other characters and we have a similar scene. No, they do the same thing with Vader, cutting the helmet open, seeing his eye.
Yeah.
You know, the other character recoiling in horror, a moment where their voices start to blend, and it's, it's Hayden Christensen, no, it's James Earl Jones, and then the moment where he turns back to the dark and is focused. It was all done with Ahsoka in Twilight of the Apprentice and Rebels. Exactly the same. And I'm not overstating the similarities. It is beat for beat. Some of the shots are identical. They took someone else's story and played it off as their own. I just find that offensive. And
yeah, they copied someone else's homework and turned it in.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't understand how they, like, who allowed any of this to happen. Like, is it, and the thing is, it is too similar to be an accident. Like, they could have done, like, 3 or 4 things from Rebels. Like, maybe they didn't see Rebels, maybe they didn't know, they were just trying, it is a very similar thematic thing they're doing, so maybe they kind of accidentally recreated it, but I do not believe with how similar they were, it could have been accidental.
In the same order, like, yeah, it's
even down to the line, "Then you will die." That's a line that Matt Lanter said to Ahsoka.
Yeah. And also, I want to. It's possibly a nitpick, so I recognize that.
They're welcome.
But the line where he says, "You didn't kill Anakin, I did," sounds really cool on paper. Except both of these guys know Obi-Wan never killed Anakin. Like, well, I get what thematically I get what he's trying to say there, but neither of them were under the misimpression that he killed Anakin, except Obi-Wan was at the beginning of this show.
What I don't like about that line, it sounds like it's Anakin / Vader reaching out and trying to offer a little bit of absolution to his former master, which I don't like. I think "I am what you made me," that is a line a Sith would say. That is a line Vader would say.
Constant, he's putting it on him.
Narcissistic, everything. And we see that play out beautifully with Maul throughout the Clone Wars. It's like, I'm going to go after the people, like, I'm going to go after Palpatine because I was supposed to be by his side, and Obi-Wan stole that from me. So he devotes his entire life, I'm going to kill Obi-Wan because he cut me in half and stole my destiny from me. Like, it's incredibly narcissistic, all blaming the world around you for everything that happens to you. Like, that's the Sith worldview. And the line, "I am what you made me," was incredible delivery. And that actually hit because it felt true.
And he's putting blame onto Obi-Wan, which is exactly what Vader would do. Like, he's not like you said, reaching out for and trying to absolve his master's guilt is not what he'd be doing there. He'd be turning the screws, like,
yeah.
No.
And people are defending it, saying, "Oh, well, it's a moment of Anakin peeking out." This is personal, but I don't like that. I think there should be a point, like maybe a couple years into Vader's run, where he fully becomes who he is, and for the next 20 years, he's Darth Vader. And then when he meets his son, it starts to crack. Like, I feel like the love Luke was able to pull out of his father is made so much more powerful if he had not felt that in 20 years, rather than if it keeps kind of poking in and out throughout. And it makes, like, if the Vader facade was this fragile, for me it makes the redemption in Return of the Jedi less impactful.
Right. Like, I never, some people have been under the impression, I've never been under the impression that Vader was anything other than a fully devoted Sith Lord from Return of the Sith on. Like, maybe you could excuse a little bit of wavering in the early years. And yes, he does go into that Sith Lord thing where he wants to kill his master, but that is the Sith way. Like that's not Anakin coming out there. That's just an extension of Vader's murderous
And I think you see that
plotting.
in the way he kills everyone who learns his identity. Like, just like all, I feel like all the books and comics very much cement that notion of who Vader was, and yeah. So, and as far as the duel itself, I think it's decent. I think I think Chow's direction comes a bit more alive. It still never fully escapes the fan film feel for me. Like it's never as cool or as dynamic, and the cinematography is never as good as any Star Wars duel before that. So it never quite escapes the fan film, but it's like if I saw this as a fan film, I'd be truly impressed.
Yeah, like hey, fans did this. That's excellent.
Yeah. Then they get into the rock throwing, and
Yeah, that I did not like as well.
I
But
don't
that's in the
like.
same category to me as when Vader pulled down the ship last episode,
Yeah.
where I was just like, oh no 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 no, that's way too far.
It's the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars, like that whole realm of Star Wars, which like
I like it for what it is.
There have been force uses throughout the series that I kind of cringe a little bit at. So I wouldn't reject the show over that, but it was very cringy in my mind.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think the primary reason this duel fails for me is because it finally ends. Oh, well, two reasons. One is Anakin. I mean, Vader buries Obi-Wan under the rocks, thinks he's dead, and leaves. Why does Obi-Wan re-engage? Like, Obi-Wan is free and clear. He could just scamper off into the dark. He's great. He's good. He's golden. Vader thinks he's dead. Why does he re-engage? Beat Vader. Remind him he's still alive. Not kill him. So now Vader's going to keep coming after. Like, it's what was the? I will do what I must. What is it? What is it you must do? I don't
Evidently
understand.
not kill him.
Yeah, so like that part was silly. Like it really feels like the writers aren't thinking about the character motivations in this section. Like, why is anyone doing what they do? And then you go to the finale. He beats him. He's on the ground in front of him, and he walks away again, and leaves him alive. And I cannot think of any possible story character justification for that. Like, this man is the second most dangerous person in the galaxy. Has at this point probably been directly responsible for the deaths of thousands, if not millions, of people, and is going to kill thousands and help kill billions of people in the future. Like, the Jedi aren't pacifists. The Jedi are warriors. The Jedi's execute justice. They're the policemen of the galaxy. They don't have a problem with killing a beaten enemy if they believe this person is irredeemable and will only kill again.
Which Obi-Wan explicitly states in the fight that he thinks he's gone. Yeah.
So
like
the only reason he didn't kill Vader there is because the script said he didn't, and the only reason the script said he didn't is because they know he's still alive. So if you can't,
one thing.
go
You go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was like, so if you can't do that, if you can't follow the story to its logical conclusion, don't tell this story. Like, don't create a problem for yourself. Put yourself paint yourself into a corner where Vader has Obi-Wan has Vader at his mercy, and just walks away. Like, you created this problem for yourself by trying to tell a story that you could not conclude because it has to happen 10 years from now.
Yep. I think if you wanted to, so I'm making lemonade out of lemons here. I still think, the setup is not a good setup, but playing with the toys they've given us, look, if you could justify the line in Return of the Jedi where Luke says, "I sense the conflict within you," and Vader's like, "Obi-Wan once thought as you did." You could justify that line by, instead of having Obi-Wan be like, "My friend is gone," maybe have him like, "Maybe my friend is in there, but he's really buried deep," and then have him walk away. And then you could justify that line from Return of the Jedi and also justify Obi-Wan not killing him there on the spot.
What if
You
like
know,
he raised his saber? Like cut out the dialogue before that where he sees Anakin. He raises his saber. He looks up and sees Anakin, and falters, and like can't go through it with it or something. I don't know.
it just disengages the lightsaber and walks away.
I
Just
mean, I would still be mad about it, but it would
yeah, but it'd be
make more
better.
sense.
Like I said, we're making lemonade with lemons here.
Like because the whole thing is that's not the story they chose to tell. The story they were telling was Obi-Wan comes to the realization that his friend is truly gone forever. That's the story they're trying to tell. And so that is kind of incompatible with our thing, like where he spares him because he sees Anakin still.
right. And to be fair, like that to me, the incongruity is that line in Return of the Jedi, because Obi-Wan is constantly telling Luke, "Look, this guy's done," and you have to kill him because he's gone. He's more machine now than man. Like so, in actuality, that is the right call to head towards that point. But even so, why copy the
like,
Rebels thing and show his humanity?
I'm not going to kill you now, but I'm going to train your son to kill you. See ya.
Yeah. That's even worse. Yeah, we're gonna make this personal.
Okay. So, and I think I'm just going to carry this Obi-Wan Vader thread to the end. And it's just another choice that makes me so irritated and angry is they keep Vader alive. And so at the end, Vader's like, I will hunt him down, I will never rest. And Palpatine's like, you know what? How about we don't? Just let him go. And again, another choice made because of another film. A choice that makes no sense. Like, think about from the Empire's perspective. Obi-Wan Kenobi comes out of hiding, raids the Inquisitorius, Fortress Inquisitorius, in conjunction with rebel cells. He's fighting, as far as I see, he's probably leading the rebellion as far as they can see. The probably top 5 greatest warriors in the Jedi Order, probably their greatest general, maybe Mace Windu, maybe him, is out there alive, fighting with rebels. You cannot. Also, he kicked the ass of the most dangerous man in the galaxy.
Exactly.
You cannot leave him alive.
Second time.
You can't leave him alive. Like, it doesn't.
No.
There's no possible story world building justification for what the Empire says aside from he has to be alive for A New Hope. And that is what it feels like all the story choices are happening here. They're so arbitrary. They're not driven by emotion and character. And
that's why,
world
again,
building.
if this show doesn't happen, I totally buy that maybe for the first few years, Vader did hunt Obi-Wan down to the corners of the galaxy and just could not find him. I believe that, but I don't believe that he met him, 9 years into this Sith thing and then knows he's alive. Yeah, you got humiliated for the second time, and then just decided, well, my master said no, so I'm just gonna drop it.
Obsession and vengeance, that's the way of the Sith. Like, the advice Palpatine was giving him was like Jedi, like, you're becoming too emotionally involved, pull back.
Yeah.
That's not the Sith way.
No, the Sith way is, lean into that. Kill him if you must,
Yeah, and, maybe you'll get killed, in which case, I've lost a rival.
A dangerous one.
Yeah.
All
right, so I've been kind of leading the conversation and talking a lot. Do you have any aspects that you wanted to discuss?
Yeah. Let's go to Reva, because
Do we have to?
that's a story that just doesn't make sense. Even I'm sorry, her whole arc feels very, very first draft.
And I want to give the positive spin that we can respond to it. The positive spin, I'm people on Twitter are really loving her. They're finding a way to view her entire arc as one cohesive thing. Because for me, it's I see 3 different characters. It's this person obsessed by vengeance, joins the Inquisitors, tries to get to Vader, fails, tries to. I think the interpretation is she knows Luke is Vader's son, so she wants vengeance. Stands above him with her lightsaber, realizes who she's become, breaks down, and chooses redemption. Like that's and people are finding that story powerful. I don't understand it, but that they are. So that I can't. I can't even give it like there are a lot of arguments I could argue from the other side. I can't even argue this argument from the other side because I truly don't understand it. Unfortunately,
Well,
I wish I could give the positive presentation, but go on.
the problem isn't like what you outlined. If that is what we saw, I would probably like it. But the problem is, first off, if your goal is to assassinate Vader, I can't think of a more convoluted way. No, in retribution for killing the Jedi. All right. I can't think of a more convoluted and cutting your finger to spite your thumb kind of way to do it than to join the Inquisitors, where your job is to do what he did on a daily basis.
And she did.
Yes, and she did the job for years to just to curry favor to get an audience with him,
which she has. Vader is the Inquisitor's boss.
Yeah.
So there's no way she hasn't interacted with him many times.
She's had her shot numerous times in numerous cases, and I'm like the whole way she goes about this is all wrong. And then you stretch that logic into the show, and it's like, okay, maybe she wants to kill Luke to get at Vader. But Vader doesn't even know about Luke.
Neither does Reva. I watched this episode twice. There is no possible way Reva could have learned Luke's identity. It's just not in the show.
So, like, what is it to get?
I watched this episode, and when I got to the end, I assumed she was trying to kill Luke as a revenge on Obi-Wan. Because it was so unclear. And I'm still not convinced that's not what the writers were thinking. I don't know what the writers were thinking because it's not in the episode.
So we have multiple revenge plots that just don't make any sense. And I've said this in another conversation. Like, if the idea is that you've become the thing you hate in order to try and destroy it, like, that's fine. That's good.
Batman and Batman v Superman.
Yeah, exactly. Or even Vader himself, right? Like, yeah, you've become the very thing you swore to destroy. Like, that's fine if you want to tell that story, except it doesn't tell that story. That all of that is background. So I just don't understand Reva as a character. I genuinely don't know what they were planning with this character beyond having a few ideas that they wanted to do and just finding the barest bones way to connect those things that they needed her to do.
Yeah, like I view her as three different people. Like, there's episode 1 through 4, episode 5 Reva, and episode 6 Reva. Like, I cannot find the connective tissue getting this character from point A to B to C. Like,
right.
For the first four episodes, she is like your classic Sith. She's just ambitious, doing everything she can to get to the top, fighting with her coworkers and all of that, like classic Sith stuff. Episode 5, she is, it was all a revenge plot to kill Vader. It doesn't work with the previous 4 episodes, but I think that episode 5 is a pretty good script, self-contained, that it kind of works in the runtime.
Yeah.
Episode 6, she's the Terminator going to try and murder children. And I do not know how to connect that back to episode 5 Reva. So the climactic moment, she's standing above Luke with her lightsaber raised, and she has flashbacks to the temple, and she's like, oh, I'm like Vader. And she even asked Luke, did I become him? You imbecile, you're an Inquisitor. Yes,
you've been him
like
for
Vader.
You've been him for the past 9 years.
I can. I made it. The thing I said to our message group was like, It's like if you have a concentration camp guard who has been killing Jews for years, wakes up one day, am I like Hitler? Like, you were doing the. You joined Vader's squad of little Vaders to do Vader things.
Yes.
Yes, you're Vader.
And it's a bit disingenuous that Obi-Wan's like, no, of course not. Dude,
Yes, you are.
like, you saw the trophy room, man. Like, come on.
Yeah, I just the character.
That's her place of work. Just saying.
And again, it's like nothing about Reva makes sense this episode to me. And so, like when I say a third of the episode is devoted to that plot, it was really irritating. And also, I really wish they did something more clever with the fight with Owen and Beru against her. Like, these are people who live on the frontier. Attacks from Tusken Raiders is a very real threat. I kind of wish they would have had some like elaborate defenses and booby traps, and like they could have had like a really creative kind of Home Alone action sequence there. But they just went again with the most basic kind of bland shooting. Yeah.
Or the gritty Home Alone kind of thing, like Skyfall.
Yeah. Like, just that's me with this show. Like, do something interesting and clever. No, here's the most bland vanilla version of any possible thing.
In all honesty, I think the Inquisitors should have been the antagonist of the show. It should have all taken place on Tatooine, and it should have been Obi-Wan's Dark Night of the Soul. How do you be a good Jedi in a galaxy that is persecuting Jedi and making it impossible to be a good Jedi? And have Obi-Wan have a somber but ultimately triumphant story of overcoming as best as anyone can in this Empire-run galaxy under those circumstances.
And a month ago, like the show ended the way I wanted it to end. Like a month ago, I was saying I want this show to end up with that Inquisitors coming to the homestead and then having to fight them off. Like,
Yeah,
but it happened.
But Obi-Wan could have been there.
Like so you again like all on Tatooine, the Inquisitors are hunting someone else, and like someone finds out. And instead of telling Vader, like, oh, I want to bring him in myself before I let Vader know. Because if I tell Vader, Vader's going to come here and do it himself. I have to kill the boy myself to get the reward. Like something like that so Vader will never know. And then you could end in this climactic thing where you have Owen and Uncle, and Ben, people who do not see eye to eye, but love this boy, fighting back to back to save him.
Yep. That should have been the concept, I think.
Yeah.
But that's not what we got.
All right. So I guess anything else you want to say about Reva? Or can I move on to something else?
Yeah, we should probably move on.
So the last thing that makes me so angry about this, like there's been many of them. I think there's about 3 or 4 already. Qui-Gon. They promised us Qui-Gon, and they don't give us Qui-Gon. Like I'm sorry, 30 seconds of nothing dramatic at the end is not giving us Qui-Gon. I refuse to accept that.
What's honestly most insulting to me, like I could have done with a 30-second teaser of Qui-Gon seeing Obi-Wan for the first time, or excuse me, Obi-Wan seeing Qui-Gon as a Force ghost for the first time. Like that could have been cool, but that should have been a dramatic bringing Obi-Wan to his knees. Oh my goodness, Master, it's you. It's really you. Like, not, oh, hey, buddy, let's ride out into the desert together. What are they thinking?
Do that, but make it a surprise. Don't promise it. Like they have Obi-Wan Kenobi in the prologue of the flashbacks to Revenge of the Sith. They showed Yoda saying, "You will learn to communicate with Qui-Gon." First episode, he's trying to speak to Qui-Gon. I think 2 different times. I think there's 3 different times in the series where he's trying to reach out to Qui-Gon in his lowest moments and he can't. That reunion needs to be integral to the drama of this show. Just like I did not write the laws of storytelling, but they exist, And if you set something up like that in dramatic moments, it has to be paid off dramatically.
Right.
And speaking of the absolution that we see that Vader gives Obi-Wan of you did not kill Anakin, I did. That absolution needs to come from Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon is the one who pressured a young Jedi to take on the most difficult Padawan in the galaxy far before he was ready.
Yep.
And it turned out horribly. And his Padawan has been living with the guilt and blaming himself for, like, of course he does have some to blame, but also he was simply not qualified to ever take care of Anakin.
And he was being worked on, and you know, like not to dissolve the responsibility of Obi-Wan and the Jedi from the missteps they took, but got to give a little credit to Palpatine here. Like he was being worked on by the most notorious and ingenious Sith Lord in the galaxy's history since the Sith were known to be extinct. Like,
yeah.
It's not like.
But what I was saying was, well, it's just like a tearful scene between them where he's like, "It's okay. I know you weren't ready. I should not have asked that for you. It's not your fault." Like, just how powerful. I'm getting chills right now saying that.
Yeah, that could have brought a tear to my eye. Like, but instead we get, "Hey, buddy." It's like,
I would rather him have not shown up.
I agree wholeheartedly. Like, that was just the most surface level cameo style. May as well have been Stan Lee. Yeah, like the Force Ghost of Stan Lee. I would have been more emotional if it was the Force Ghost of Stan Lee. That's sad.
Okay, one more thing that made me mad. This is more of a nitpick, but again, I guess emblematic of, I think this show is not a thoughtful or intelligent piece of work, is when Obi-Wan goes and visits Leia on Alderaan. Like, this is the most wanted man in the galaxy. And he's openly visiting a senator, just standing out in the open. Hi, guys, just having a conversation. Like, everything the Disney canon comics and books for the first five or so years of their run were incredible. Like New Dawn, the Thrawn stuff, Rebels. Like, they were building. They put Ahsoka. They put a lot of focus into this Imperial period, and they did such an incredible job of building up the horror that was the Emperor. This omnipresent force that had the best intelligence. Like, the Inquisitors, like, they can sense if a Force user is on this planet. Like, that's another thing. The show entirely forgot about that. But, like, if a Jedi exists, they're found, or even a Force-sensitive child exists, they will be found eventually. Like, someone will come and kill. Like, the Empire is omnipresent and horrifying, and anyone who is out of line will be caught. Like, the fact that Bail Organa was able to create this network and maintain it was a miracle. And like in the Rebels, the whole thing was like the Rebels was just a series of them running away from the Empire, catching up to this base, running to the next base. Like, if anyone gets a whisper of a rebel work or a location of a Jedi, the only thing you can do is run, and you probably won't even make it. That's what the Empire is. The ISB, the Imperial Security Bureau, the investigators, they will find you.
And everyone that was so like Bail Organa is like near the tippy top of the Emperor's list of people to absolutely watch closely.
And also, like, our fortress got attacked after we kidnapped his daughter. I wonder if there's a connection there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's.
So, like, and a connection to Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan came arrested. It's like, the fact that he's not under surveillance after this happened is ridiculous, but also the fact that Obi-Wan would just come out in the open, in the sunlight, "Hey guys, we're going to have a chat," is just like, it's a little nitpick, but I truly believe this is emblematic of the fact that this show is not, it's not intelligent. It is dumb. It is just, it makes so many basic, I think truly stupid mistakes. And it could just be good. I'm guessing just, I'm not going to say, oh, Joby Harrell's not a fan. I mean, I'm sure he is. Like a lot of things he included, he would not do or know unless he loved these characters. But I do not think he's very well immersed in what Star Wars is, and definitely not much past the movies.
Well, I think also a lot of this is born out of the mentality of wouldn't it be cool if, and then not much thought beyond that.
That's my next thing was like I said the fan film critique I had here. Like it's not just about the quality. It's not just the filmmaking is bad. It's a tone. When you're watching a fan film, most of them are fueled by that, as you said, that wouldn't it be cool mentality. Like there's all these really wacky force uses and lots of rocks and boulders being thrown, and I've seen two different fan films that have a lot of rocks and boulders being thrown. Like there is a mentality of just like get out everything, all the cool lines, all the cliches, all the moments that we want to see, put it out there, and that is so. I do think the fan film critique is in part for this show is in part based on the quality. I think there are particularly when Vader is shot like you can't do a shaky cam close up of Vader. It's against the laws of cinema. That shouldn't be happening. That felt very fan film, and just a lot of things like that. But
Yeah.
so it's the quality feels like a fan film a lot of the time, but also just the construction of the plotting and the way scenes are put together and the way setups and payoffs are done, the way callbacks and cheap recreations of moments are done. That feels like I'm watching a fan film. Like it's like they crafted so much of this. So like the Leo DiCaprio, where he's like, "Hey, look at that on the TV." Like that is what they crafted so much of the show to feel like for the audience, and a lot of people like that. I don't. I find that I find that cheap. Like
I like it in doses. Like,
like a lot.
there are
Good.
times where that's appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not like all the time.
Like it's. I think an example I'm okay with is in like the Force Awakens, where Finn is like rummaging through a barrel of tools and like pulls out the remote training droid and tosses it over his shoulder. Like those are fine, but when you're recreating lines, recreating scenes, and or just showing things. Jurassic World Dominion, where they brought out. Have you seen Jurassic World Dominion?
Yes,
Where they bring out the
spoilers, I
Barbasol
guess.
can.
Oh
like-
yeah.
There's nothing. It's so meaningless. Like that's the kind of thing the show is doing,
Yep.
and it just irritates me. Like I don't get emotional from seeing things I've seen before. I get emotional from like the dramatic potential. Like me talking about what. Like I don't get emotional from seeing Qui-Gon. I get emotional from the dramatic potential of what Qui-Gon means to the story and the characters. And so
Right.
I'm not gonna care if I see Qui-Gon. I want to see story.
The Qui-Gon, to get back into that, like, Qui-Gon feels like a wouldn't it be cool if edition, but in the worst way possible, because it feels like, forgive me if this is insensitive,
Uh-oh.
when we're dealing with Carrie Fisher and the Rise of Skywalker, right? We're dealing with a woman who has passed away, and they're reusing footage as best as they can to scrounge together a way to include her in the story. And that's what it felt like. But the problem is Liam Neeson is not dead. Like,
But even Rise of Skywalker, they gave her a powerful, integral part of Kylo Ren's storyline and redemption. Like,
right.
they gave her drama, even if she couldn't, their footage they had couldn't fully support it. They tried to give her story.
Right. But here they're acting like Liam Neeson is dead. No, this is the best we can do, guys. Like, no. Like,
And he didn't look bad. He didn't. Like, I was like, oh my gosh,
No.
he's gonna look old. And like, no, like you can tell, but he didn't look bad at all.
yeah, I mean, like, there, it has to be especially egregious for me to be like, oh, this person is much, much older now, and oh my goodness, they did nothing. Like Anakin earlier in this series, actually. And the benefit with Liam Neeson is like Qui-Gon was already something of an older character, so looking a little bit older isn't that big of a deal, you know?
If he's blue and wavy, you can fudge it.
Right. And Anakin was the exact opposite scenario where like he's supposed to be like barely out of his teens, Padawan with a rat tail on and he's looking 40, like that's, you can't pass that off, buddy, in broad daylight, no less, but
Yeah. Um. Anything else? I feel like I've kind of hit all the main complaints and critiques. Any positive? I do want to mention positives that are warranted. I think the space chase in the beginning, I think it looks pretty good. Like there were a lot of cool shots of the Star Destroyer showing how scary and massive it is. Like some of the fight was pretty cool.
the saber parts of the fight were fine to me. Like that was all good. The rock stuff, not so much, but the saber
Yeah.
stuff, pretty good.
Owen and Baru were very good. Like I wasn't very happy with how the scene played out, but I think both of them were good. And just the other line, Ben, you want to meet him? Like that did. I got a little tug there.
Yeah, that was good.
Like I so badly want a full season of just gravelly voiced Owen. Like Joel Edgerton was so good and given so little to do.
You could give him a short film of, like, almost a Western, with Tusken Raiders being a problem. Like, it doesn't have to be, like, earth-shattering or anything. I'd watch a short film with Uncle Owen defending the moisture farm,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
I got back to a complaint even though I was saying positives. Any positives for you?
Yeah, I had to caveat all my positives. That's the problem here. Like, I dislike that Obi-Wan and Leia have such an intimate relationship when that is completely absent and devoid in A New Hope. But I do genuinely like the scene, or at least the lines of the scene on the platform where Obi-Wan is telling him, you have these qualities as your mother, and these are a gift from your father. Like, and baby Leia is precious, so I like that for sure.
It is good. I could not enjoy it just because I was thinking, like, this means nothing. Because when we get to A New Hope, Leia is not going to care at all about Obi-Wan. He's going to die, and she will not react.
She's rubbing Luke's back.
So,
she knows him better.
So it makes me think less of Leia as a person. So like
Yeah.
I cannot make this relationship work in my mind.
Yeah.
Based on who we know Leia to be and who we see her as in A New Hope. So it's like very sweet scene. I could not enjoy it, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm just saying. That's why I said I had to caveat my praise of it. Like, I hate that it has to be the case, but it does, because I'm very much of the same opinion with about Leia here, and the way they try to be too cute with that too is like, if you ever need my help again, but she doesn't ask for his help. She delivering a message from her dad, like,
yeah,
she's playing a degree of separation there that comes across as really cold if you have this in the canon.
mm-hmm. And the moment I love between the two characters is back in episode 3, before she knows he's Obi-Wan Kenobi, and they're having that dialogue. He's telling her, you remind me of your mother. And like that was a genuinely sweet scene that wasn't bogged down by canon. That
Right.
I really liked.
Yep.
So let's move that into how are we feeling about Star Wars now? Like the Rise of Skywalker came out. I'm not going to turn this into a Tross bashing session, and it hurt a lot of my investment and excitement for the galaxy. I think that has been built up again by, I think, Mandalorian, Bad Batch, and kind of all the new shows being announced. Like, my hype is building up again. But then seeing Book of Boba Fett, and now this show, and finding them incredibly cheap looking, which I find unforgivable in Star Wars, but also dramatically inert, is again killing my hype for Star Wars. Because, like... Now, obviously, I am an optimist at heart, so there's always the possibility of they're learning the right lessons, fixing things, use less of the volume. But I'm also discouraged by how positive people are being about this show. Not because I want people to not be happy, to not enjoy things. Of course, like, if you enjoy it, I'm happy for you. But when all of Twitter is singing the praise of what I view to be a genuinely bad, like a bad show dramatically, and it's just a cheap show. I'm like, what? Why
Don't
would
incentivize
Lucasfilm?
this.
Why would Lucasfilm improve after this? If they
Right.
know they can get away with so little effort, so little work, so little money.
And and so little care. Like that's what bothers me the most.
Mhm.
Because it did start with the rise of Skywalker, and as much as I love the Mandalorian, there's parts of it too, like confusing the whole lore of Mandalorians as a whole.
Mhm.
There's times where they just do things because they want to do them without much consideration to what they're doing to the rest of canon.
Yeah.
And that's a worrying pattern now. Like with the rise of Skywalker, it was egregious and horrible, and we all know what
But at
happened
least
there,
it was
right?
in the future.
Right, right. And then with Mandalorian, like if you squint hard enough, like yeah, it can make sense, you know.
Squint and
But
have a helmet on.
yeah, but now we have to have squint. Now we have to squint, have a helmet on, wear the blindfold under the helmet, and the helmet has a blast shield down,
I'm not
and
gonna
take it
watch
on
this again.
faith. Say again?
I'm not gonna watch this again. I've seen it twice. I gave it its fair shot. It's not going into my headcanon. Like when I do my rewatches, this and Book of Boba Fett, they don't exist for me.
It it would be better if Book of Boba Fett at least has the courtesy to be a part of canon that is kind of out of the way and in a corner and inessential. And so it's inoffensive in that regard. But this is playing with the drama of the galaxy for films and other content that post date this in the chronology, and it's going back and messing things up. So we have so little care devoted to these characters and this scenario that already exists, and it's all thrown out of the window just to please fans, which that's a whole other side conversation.
Well,
But
speaking of a fan, James in the live chat just said, "Awesome, Kenobi rocks." I'm glad you enjoy it, man. I'm glad you enjoy it. I don't take any. Well, there are rare occasions I take pleasure in bashing things, but not here. I wanted this to be good.
I did too, and as much as like I've had friends that probably really dislike me on the subject of this show, and you know, like I've made my peace with that, but I don't think I was unwinnable to this show. I just think that the scenario they chose to write out from the get-go was a bad batch. Pardon my pun.
Don't compare this to Bad Batch. How dare you?
Which let me answer the question you actually asked, which is that I am excited for Andor and the Bad Batch. I really, my faith right now is more in the animated part of the galaxy than the live action parts.
It doesn't have the threat of being cheap visually.
Yes.
Well,
Yes, that's right.
there is such a thing as cheap animation, but I don't think it'll happen.
No, not in this case, I don't think. And part of that is because they're safely playing within the style of Clone Wars, so you're safe there.
Even
you know?
Visions look pretty dang good.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm more confident in the animated part of this. I'm curious to see where they go with film after this. But the live action TV stuff, I'm
Oh no,
guarded about.
I just had a thought, man. Like, so I think the biggest bane of live action filmmaking right now in Star Wars is the volume. I think they shoot everything on the volume, and it only like works at like dark scenes with like a lot of neon lights. Like everything else, I think looks like I can see the wall. I can always see the wall in the volume. It dampens the filmmaking. Everything is smaller. Like they film it like they're in a tiny room. So, and I think that this show is the worst offender of all in that regard. So,
Yeah.
and so next movie is Taika Waititi, and he just made Thor: Love and Thunder, which was also made heavy use of the volume. and clips and trailers of that movie are coming out. And this isn't just me. Like all over Twitter, people are saying, "Why does this look so cheap? Why does this look so bad?" And I'm not talking about I'm not talking about dramatic quality or comedy as far as like it looks visually bad.
Yeah.
And it's the volume.
Although that other stuff is true too.
Yeah, like I can see every single thing I've come to hate about live action Star Wars with the volume is on full display in a $200 million movie that was shot in the volume. And if Taika is in love with this technology, is he going to bring that to Star Wars? Like, he didn't use the volume on Ragnarok. Like he did, he used it well, I think, on his episode of The Mandalorian. Is he going to bring this back to Star Wars to the movies? I don't want Star Wars. So
My
I feel like they'll put the money to make it look good. Like the movies, like they reshot Solo, because they didn't like where it was going. So I feel like they're not going to let that happen. But that's a scary thought. Looking at the Thor Love and Thunder clips.
I think far be it from me to guess what's going through Taika's mind, but I think the one safeguard we might have here is I feel like to most people, Star Wars is a bit more sacred than
Thor.
Thor. Yeah, so which is ironic because Thor's God of Thunder. Ha ha ha. Anyway,
So what happens when
think
atheists make movies, I guess.
But I feel like Star Wars is a more reverent corner of film than the MCU. I hope it doesn't become like I want Taika's style, but I don't want it to the detriment of what makes Star Wars Star Wars. You know,
And I love Taika Waititi, but in his element, like I think Jojo Rabbit might be my top 10 movies of all time. Like I do love the man, but I have issues with his blockbuster stuff. So yeah, I guess getting back to the larger point, like as far as my feelings on Star Wars, like Andor, I'm very much looking forward to. I think Tony Gilroy is an incredibly talented writer. Looking at what he did for Rogue One, exploring those themes again, a show shot on sets and on locations. As far as we know, zero use of the volume. They might use it some, but like, but then again, like, can Star Wars truly be done justice on a TV budget? I don't know. So we'll see how that works out. I have hope. I also have worries. Animation, Bad Batch looks great. Tales of the Jedi is coming up. So like, there's a lot of things to look forward to for me in Star Wars, but this show has made me worried, man. Like, is The Acolyte going to look like this? Is John Watts' show going to look like this? I don't want.
I feel like they're doing too much. I feel like it's an overextension. Like, yeah. I would not be upset if they announced half of those projects were cut and they were just going to focus on making a couple of the projects they have better.
Which kind of happened. Like, they made all those announcements, like, the celebration, like 2 years ago, and like only half of and the rest kind of just like, where's Lando? Nobody knows.
Exactly. And I think that often happens with these kinds of things, but I do think we do need to cull the herd a bit more.
And
the good news,
Marvel too.
Yeah, and the good the thing I am in terms of live action, other than Andor, that I like. I'm cautiously optimistic about The Mandalorian, because like even though Book of Boba Fett was a train wreck, like the Mando episode was great. Like there's hope in The Mandalorian, at least. It's not. It's not like I don't think it's up to the quality of the animated series, but it's still really good.
Yeah. I had a lot of critiques. I think a lot of the same issues, but to a far lesser extent with that show. And then there were episodes where I really had no issues. So I genuinely forgot Mandalorian season 3. I think that's going to be probably as good as the first two. So and I quite like those. I think the notion of being overextended is very real. I think we're seeing that with Marvel, where they're putting out 3 to 4 films a year and 2 to 3 TV shows a year. I think there literally comes a limit to the quality control that can be maintained by a single company.
Yeah.
And I think they've passed it in Marvel. They're like, it's just like the She-Hulk trailer, like where the VFX money go? And then with this show, it's like I don't see any money here. Well, there's a lot of money on screen, but
Sure.
not. There's a lot of places
Not
where
well
it should
spent.
be. There's a lot of places where it should be where it isn't.
Yes.
And I think we're seeing the limits of these series, trying to see like how much can we get away with, how much will people take, and people are still screaming for more with Obi-Wan, and that's what concerns me. Like I do hope that someone somewhere is seeing these complaints and having serious discussions in the production offices. Like as far as we gotta. I won't say work harder because I think people probably did work hard. I think it was just rushed without enough money. But
Sure.
we gotta be smarter about where we put the money, and we gotta, if we have to push it back, kind of thing. So yeah, it's like the kind of the Wall Street mindset of we just got a constant growth, and I think we have genuinely reached the breaking point with both Marvel and Star Wars, where there's this quality there. There are talented people. There are good stories. Just bring it back in a little bit. You don't need to dominate every corner of the market
At every at every month of the year, like just
because I think Andor and Bad Batch, they're going to be overlapping.
yeah.
So speaking of the future, like when we see us again, like I can't do 2 reviews a week going forward. So I hope we'll be able to cover at least one of them. We'll see how that turns out.
The question is like, which one? It's hard.
I think Bad Batch is starting first, so I feel like there'll be shorter discussions to be easier. So yeah, as far as the future, I guess you'll probably, if I'm not crazy busy, you'll probably see us with the Bad Batch. Where can people follow you, Ryan?
The one and only place I even want people to follow me is on Pop Americano on YouTube. It's a channel where we discuss films. I'm still working on my coverage for Schindler's List. I'm doing a video essay on it, so that requires a bit more prep work than most of my projects do. But we fully covered the Lord of the Rings trilogy in about 20 hours. So we did a scene-by-scene analysis, and that was
I actually haven't watched those, I'm ashamed to say, but
it's
20 hours is my excuse.
It's a good excuse, but look, if you're like me, I think there is a lot of people that actually look at content and go, okay, sometimes these 5-minute videos, it's like you don't actually have anything to offer here. And look, we went long. I'm not saying we didn't, but I do think there's a space and a need for long form discussion of some great art, and the Lord of the Rings definitely fits that bill. So if you are a Lord of the Rings fan, and I don't know a single Lord of the Rings fan that would say no to 20 more hours of Lord of the Rings analysis. So thanks.
Yeah. Also, please follow the Outer Rim on Twitter at the Outer Rim the Outer Rim SW. I cannot speak anymore. Facebook, join us at the Outer Rim of Star Wars group. Lots of positive, constructive discussion. Then also subscribe on YouTube at the Outer Rim of Star Wars channel. Like this video, you know the drill. And I guess until the next Star Wars show, we will see you guys later.